Who's got the charger?
I'm just going to come down here so I can see the room. Stephen, thank you so much, because you've rescued us and you've got some time for discussion. Then Hanny can still do some closing words, and it all fits back together again. Comments, questions, reflections, things for Chris or Ian or Stephen? Yeah.
So we've got a question just on the how is the final and what is the current situation for the Phoenix project and the angling research in terms of funding or continuity? Because I think that there are great examples of you know what you can do with data, but there are also maybe potentially for politicians like they have to spend money.
Yeah, so I mentioned the Phoenix project. We had 2 years funding from the DCSF, and then there was a change of government, so we didn't get third year's funding because the project was doing quite well. So now we're engaging directly with local authorities who've still got this duty. So interestingly, we're not really working with the authorities we worked with first time around. We're working with authorities that have picked up on these ideas I've shared and want to go forward. So we don't claim PLINS is a national thing, because it's not. It's pockets of interest. So sustainable is a good question, but I think the other aspect is what we've learned and sharing what we've learned out of it as well.
Do you see it becoming like taking a life of its own, that all of a sudden becomes like a de facto standard for sharing information about activities? I mean, I have a 3-year-old, you know, like term time is like a nightmare to find anything.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I would be very interested in those.
Yeah, I mean, we learn lots of stories, such as summer holidays are a key point, as we all know, and often brochures and activities would sort of stay in the local authority before they got printed, and then when they got printed, they'd be booked somehow. Yeah. So you know, there's another issue to it alongside what we're saying. We should say this data should be released and should be reused. Yeah. So I empathise with your point around that. How far it will go, we don't know, but we've certainly had some good luck with it.
This question is sort of audience survey. So Steve presents some really nice examples of the use of your data, and I'm just wondering now, what was the cost to audience survey to release those data sets? And reviewing that presentation, I'm actually seeing some of the benefits of releasing that data. Therefore, internally now, has there been a mind shift within audience survey? Was actually the right decision rather than a government push?
As for the cost, I don't know what the cost was. I don't have the figures to hand. But I think what the mind shift is, it excites us what people are doing with our information, and it tells us that this is information, this data needs to be maintained, and that's part of our product thinking. So every data set will be maintained like any other data set, otherwise it loses its value. I think Ian would say, but I think in our involvement over the last couple of years, I'd say there are about 5 things that come out of it really. There's sort of market insights, kinds of things that Catherine was talking about, like big shifts. There's customer insights in terms of what people want that they can't get at the moment, so improvements and feedback on our data. There's relationships that we've built that we wouldn't otherwise have built. There are potentially revenue opportunities for other things we're doing. So there's an awful lot of feedback and benefit to us as a result of putting out part of our portfolio as open data. At that point, you pick up on Ian as well around that.
Yeah, it was, again, I don't know the exact figure, but it was a lot, in the millions, I think. And the second point about has it created any sort of mind shift? Definitely. And if I gave too much detail, I'll probably be hung for treason. but there's other initiatives that are in the mill at the moment that should extend the path. So it's definitely seen as being a big thing.
And of course, the cost to the angling project to provide this interface was minimal. It wasn't an external cost we had to bear.
I think one of the challenges around that question is how do you demonstrate sort of costs and benefits? How do you demonstrate the values? And it's often very indirect. But I'm coming from a research background. You ask yourself the same question: how do you prove the benefit of doing research now, which isn't going to be realised for 10 years? It's the same question. And that's a real challenge with innovative stuff. You know, if you're a salesman, you can say, there's my last quarter's figures, beat that. You know. If you're involved in innovation, it's hit and miss, it's taking risks, etc. So ways of measuring are useful, and that's a useful way. You know, stories are a useful way of demonstrating value.
There is actually, I spoke to someone that's knowledge base, I don't know, there's a consultancy that is doing some research on the value for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of the
Consulting work.
work. So I think that they're going to publish some research based on
Yeah.
generic review models. But the other, at the European level, the latest research that was published last week, which from the value of PSI, was showing that it was something like on the 5 or 6 times bigger the indirect benefit that you could see in society rather than the direct benefit from publishing open data or public sector information.
Yeah, I'm not sure you want that, because one of the issues that we face is a number of figures that are being pumped out in the air currently regarding the value of public sector information. So, for example, in the EU, it's estimated as like 27 billion. But one of the issues that we face, and it's like recorded in many studies, is the impact of these open data catalogues like data.gov, data.gov.uk is not realised. There's no actual measurable output of those. For example, that's why I was particularly impressed by the fact that you'd actually measured the outputs, the impact of your applications, because very often you get to the point where you're reading a lot of the literature and it will say apps will be created. But what are the impacts of that? What is the impact of the use of that data in society as a whole?
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're missing the link. So it's really nice to actually see that.
Yeah. I guess it's a hard thing to get into a community and find out. You are the person best placed to identify the impact and feed it back in a sense. It's harder to do it the other way around on a large scale. We can release all that information, but getting to actually who's using it and what problems they're addressing with it is what we're really interested in.
I think the mistake we made early on was thinking that, for example, with Plings, the impact of this will mean that more people will go to more activities. And that's much harder to prove through what we're doing. But it's easier to prove that actually we've engaged local authorities and they've improved their youth offer.
Yeah.
We've engaged developers and they built these apps and we tested them with young people, etc. The ultimate one is, as I said before, are more people going to more activities and not hanging around on the streets.
Yeah.
As a consequence of what we're doing, that's very hard to prove, but I think